So this girl Chelsea was seen reading a dictionary, and she was also like that kind of person who like she's super smart. Like, don't get me wrong, like really smart, but she would use all the big words. She had all the big words in her back pocket, and you could tell like if she wasn't reading a dictionary, she had some type of app that gave her a word of the day, word of the week, word of the month, whatever it may be, and she was just ripping it, using it on civilians. I'm like 75% caveman. I don't like to use big words because I want people to understand what I'm saying. I mean, I also want to understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, so that's why I can't use the big words either. Welcome to the No One's Watching podcast, episode number 5. Don't know what it's going to be titled yet, but we'll see. If you're watching this, you shouldn't be. If you watched the last one, you shouldn't have. And my name's Mike, and if you don't know who I am, good. Just going to hop right into it. I'm going to talk a little bit about marathon prep today. I'm going to start off with marathon prep. Those of you who don't know, sign up for a marathon on a whim after just starting to run in January, and it's going all right, I would say. Starting to hate zone 2. It's a very, very, very droning pace. It's kind of terrible, but right now it appears my only zone 2 run is once a week, and we're just gonna have to eat it. There's nothing you can really do about it. It's hard, with the tempos, the tempo runs that I've been doing. The horse wants to run, man. The horse doesn't want to trot anymore. Horse wants to run. So it's getting hard to do zone 2, but we're going to stick it out because, it feels all right. It just takes forever. Yeah, I've been doing some tempo runs. Tempo runs feel nice. My 9K on Sunday felt fantastic. I ran 9K at 11:30 pace, which is pretty fast. Wasn't expecting him to put me on like a tempo run for my long run, but it was fun. It was cool. Made time go by a little bit faster. Was less thinking about keeping my heart rate down, and I was just running instead. And the weather was beautiful. I think it was probably like 55 to 60 degrees in the morning, and it was just great. Like, I had a good overall time. Did way better than I thought I'd do on a 9K. I think it was about a little bit over an hour, maybe a couple minutes over an hour. But yeah, 11:30 pace is pretty good for me because I usually run around like a 12:30 to 13:30 pace on my zone 2 run. So it was about a minute or two faster, and it just felt right, But then I had my zone 2 for my next run. Awful, treacherous, honestly, a travesty that it works, because if it didn't work, I wouldn't do it, but it works. I know it does. I can already feel my engine getting better. And then I had a tempo run today. Twas treacherous. Had me running like a pretty fast pace for the first 2 kilometers, and honestly, if it didn't slow me down, I was done for the day. It gave me a 2-minute rest break, so I was able to walk. And then I said, I in my head, I was just like, hey man, if this is a faster pace for another 2 kilometers, it's cooked. It's a wash. Not gonna be able to do it, and I'll just zone 2 it out. But you know what? It's like the app heard me. It's like the app understood exactly what was going on in my head, and it gave me a nice little faster pace still, maybe like 10, 15 seconds faster, but it was only for 1 kilometer. And I was like, thank you, sir. And then a 90-second break, and then same pace for another kilometer, and then a cool down. But by the time I was doing the cool down, I was pretty toasted. I was like, this is a walk. This is a walk, and then maybe sometimes jog if I can get my heart rate below 160, So that's what I ended up doing. And I've been running in the heat because the way my shifts are set up right now for work is I'm getting out at 6 p.m. Not really used to that. Usually get out around 2, or I work like a night and I get out around 9 p.m. But I'll run in the mornings on those days. So ideally, preferably, I'd be working that night shift or that evening shift and get my runs done in the morning when it's not too hot. But this week I'm working until 6, so I get to start running around 6 or 7 p.m. and it's hot still. It's still hot. It's like 75, 80 degrees where I'm at, and then it slowly cools down over the course of the run. But the sun's out. It's that time of year where the sun's out and sun's still high at 6 o'clock. So, but yeah, I mean, I've been pounding electrolytes because it's supposed to keep me from cramping up and stuff like that, and like keep the sodium levels high and get all those the good electrolytes, and it makes my water tasty. So I'm not complaining. When it comes to diet, I've been shifting a little bit. I go on to like today, I knew I was going to run again, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll tone down on crazy protein intake, and I'll focus on like a higher carb thing. So I started the day, instead of having my Nature's Ozempic, which is Greek yogurt and protein powder, I went with 2 English muffins with some butter, and then I had a protein shake to make up for that protein loss, and then I went for one of those metrics bars that still have high carbs and decent protein on them for the calories. I ate one of those midday, and then I had my favorite pre-run snack, the Uncrustable. But yeah, I mean, if you guys are interested in my diet, and it's not that like anyone's watching this, but if anyone's out there and they are interested in my diet and what I've been doing to get down from 275 in January down to now 249, since I started running, I lost about since I started this podcast, I've lost about 4 pounds, and it's been about 2 weeks, I think. But what I like to do is fairly simple, right? So I take my goal body weight, multiply it by 10, and that should give you like a moderate to light weight loss, depending on what your goal is, right? So I'm 250 pounds. My goal is 200. I'd like to beat that 200 by the time I run this marathon, but I'll take 220, I'll take 230. You know what I mean? Not really like focusing too much on the weight loss, more focusing on the running, and my running's only going to get easier if I'm less weight. But yeah, so I take my goal weight, which is 200 pounds, multiply it by 10, and gives me 2,000 calories on the day. I like to eat around, my sweet spot is like 160 to 180 grams of protein. I know they say you're supposed to do it for body weight, but 250 grams of protein, who's doing that? For what? What am I doing that for? I have a good amount of muscle on me. My genetics allow that, but yeah, so I'm just more maintenance than anything, just trying to keep as much muscle on me as I can while I'm running. And then the rest of the calories, besides the protein, besides that 160 to 180 grams of protein, they're free. I could eat fat, I could eat carbs. I mean, right now I'm more focused on the carbs because of the running, but I could eat 12 ounces of chicken, get my protein, and then 1,600 calories of cookies if I wanted. Makes it super simple on me. You don't really have to think about it. You just make sure you get your protein, make sure you get track those, just make sure you're tracking calories and getting your protein, and the rest is up to you. And that's been the best thing that I've been able to do. I've tried a bunch of stuff. I've tried keto before. I've tried super low carb. I've tried a bunch of different stuff, and honestly, it's just it's calories in, calories out. Like when it comes down to it, it's calories in, calories out. There's no reason to do all the fat stuff, because you're gonna have to eat normal eventually. You know what I mean? And this way, I can go to a restaurant or something and just make a better decision, or just don't eat before that, and be able to go to a restaurant and enjoy myself and not do too much damage. Make sure I'm getting some type of protein in, some veggies or something like that, and that tends to work out well. On my Saturdays, or my Fridays, which is a Saturday, I like to eat a nice little steak or something with a baked potato and a Caesar salad. I love a good Caesar salad, but that's like my cheat meal, and it's really not that bad. But yeah, and then like I said, the pre-run fuel, the Uncrustable is an object sent from the heavens. You know what I mean? It's fantastic. It's like all the best parts of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now I'm 29 years old, so I'll eat crust. I'll make my own PB&J, but something about Uncrustable just makes it taste different. I don't know if it's the pressed edges or what, but it's fantastic. And right now I'm just eating them for fuel, so nothing fancy, and you're probably thinking, what the hell does he mean by nothing fancy for an Uncrustable? Well, I mean, there's only 2 right ways to eat an Uncrustable, right? And the first one is for fuel purposes and just getting those quick carbs in 30 minutes to 45 minutes before a run. Fantastic. Works wonders. And the only other right way is to take your time with it. You take care of that Uncrustable. It all comes down to a bunch of different things, right? But first and foremost, you want to keep them in the freezer. Storage, you got to keep them cold stored, preferably the freezer if you have one. You want to get them nice and frozen solid. Now, I'm not telling you to eat an Uncrustable frozen solid, but I am telling you that's where you should store them. And the only reason you would store them in there is because what you need to do if you're eating an Uncrustable is you need to freeze them, and when you're ready to eat them, you pop one right into the toaster, right? And what you want to do is you put that Uncrustable in there for like a minute, just enough time for the outer the bread layer to get a little bit crispy. Nothing too crazy. I'm not saying you want it to be golden brown. You just want it to have like a little little skin form on there of crust and or of toast, like toasted crust. And yeah, you want to let it get to that point, and then that way on the inside, you still have cold-ish, somewhere between room temperature and cold jelly, but the peanut butter is still frozen. So now you're eating warm exterior, moderate jelly, frozen peanut butter. That's the true way to eat an Uncrustable. And if you disagree, I'm just gonna flat out say you're wrong. So that's what it is, and there's really no other way to think about it. But yeah, so moving away from marathon prep, I've been having some thoughts recently, and I just want to. I was talking to my wife, and we were talking about someone we went to high school with, and I don't remember how it got brought up, but basically there was this person who would use these absorbent words, like you could tell they were really on their White Goodman shit, you know what I mean? Like they were reading the dictionary, they were trying to break a mental sweat too. They weren't like, it wasn't like a normal thing. I don't really know anyone who reads a dictionary, but this person for sure got some intelligence that they were reading a dictionary poolside. So now I'm a relatively social person, and sometimes like I step out of bounds a little bit, but relatively social person where I'll just talk to anybody. Like it doesn't matter. And so I would go up to this person. We'll call her Chelsea, just for like privacy reasons. Dr. Pepper, zero sugar, creaming coconut. Not sure how I feel about it. Relatively tasty, but nothing to rave about. Anyway, going back to Chelsea. That's not a real name, it's for privacy, right? So this girl Chelsea was seen reading a dictionary, and she was also like that kind of person who like she was super smart. Like don't get me wrong, like really smart, but she would use all the big words. She had all the big words in her back pocket, and you could tell like if she wasn't reading a dictionary, she had some type of app that gave her a word of the day, word of the week, word of the month, whatever it may be, and she was just ripping it, using it on civilians. Like I'm just a normal guy. I'm like 75% caveman. I don't like to use big words because I want people to understand what I'm saying. And I also want to understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, so that's why I can't use the big words either. But yeah, she's just out here dropping verb nukes or adjective nukes, or just dropping bombs on civilians and the casualties. Like I was a casualty numerous times, right? To where she would use these big words in succession, And now don't get me wrong, like I said, I'm 75% caveman, but if 90% of your words are three syllables or less, and you use one big word, now I can use that other 25% that's not caveman. I can use context clues and figure out what the heck you're talking about. I can use the context around the word to figure out what that word could possibly mean. And I would say that I have about an 80% accuracy with that. But it's when someone like that uses those words in succession. If you're using words that have 5 or more syllables, or even 4 or more syllables in succession with each other, and you're expecting people to understand what you're saying, I think you're out of your mind. I think you're a terrorist. You're dropping bombs on civilians. That's not cool. And I think communication is very important. I think someone who say is it's like a in my mind, instead of like a normal spectrum where it's like line to line, I think it's more of a loop. I think intelligence is a loop, right, where it starts and it meets back, right? So instead of the spectrums being far apart from each other, they're right next to each other around the loop, right? And I would say that I'm on the loop. If this is where the caveman starts, and this is where, say, a big word user, genius person reads a dictionary, is probably right here, right and they're that close. Hear me out, right? If they're there right next to each other, I'm somewhere in that loop, like right here, closer to caveman. But I'll throw out a I'll drop a small some artillery every now and then. You know what I mean? But and I think that's a loop of intelligence, right? Because you got the caveman, right, who won't use big words, but he also can't form sentences, and so you can't really understand what he's saying, right? And the whole reason why people think somebody else is like dumb or something is because they don't know what they're thinking. It's just like that guy. Like, you know what I mean? You all know a caveman. You're just like that guy. I honestly don't even know what's happening in his brain. That's because he can't articulate it. You know what I mean? Hold on. I'm sorry to drop artillery on you guys. It's because he can't put it into words, right? Right. So So he can't put it into words, so you don't really know what he's talking about ever. But this person uses too many big words, so you don't know what they're talking about, right? So if you don't know, if you're either one of these guys, no one knows what you're talking about. But if you're somewhere along that spectrum, you have a better chance of someone knowing what you're talking about. So if you can be extremely intelligent, or you can be a caveman, it's the same thing to me, because like I said, communication is I think is a part of intelligence, right? So if you know that, and that's completely different, but if you're using those big words and you don't know that people can understand you, or you're expecting other people to understand you, you're a caveman. You're a caveman with a huge vocab. And honestly, if no one else knows the words that you're saying, you could be making them up. And then you're still a caveman. But now, if you know that you're using those big words and you're using them as like a flex, that's preposterous. Like you're doing it on, if you're doing it on purpose, that's not nice. That's you just you being mean, because you're like, I'm going to say these words, they're not going to know what it is, and you're fishing to teach, and that's weird. You're just like, I'm going to make up some words real quick. I'm trying to use an example. I tried this. If you guys don't know, this is my second time recording this podcast, and I'm real pissed off because I keep forgetting to turn the audio on. Right. But anyway, I tried it on the last one. Didn't work out too well. I kind of just was rambling, but we're going to wing it. We're going to wing it, and we're going to try again. So this is what Chelsea would do. Chelsea would be like, yeah, that lesson that we heard in class today was explanatorious, Condra neflorious, and if I'm being honest, pretty explanatory. And she didn't give you enough context. She won't give you enough context. So it'd be just like that, where she'll just list off these huge words. Now, if you're like me and you're 25% caveman, I'm just gonna let you know that I made those up. Those aren't real words. At least I don't think they're real words. And if they are, maybe I'm Chelsea. But yeah, I mean, she would just rip them off like that. And it's just like, every time she would say one, it's just like shots. It's like, douche. You're just taking shots, and you're just like ducking for cover. Find a doorway that you can hide in. It's like an earthquake's happening. You know what I mean? And you just don't want to get hit with any of the shrapnel. So you're trying to dodge. You're trying to matrix around those, because they're just like, you don't even want to think about it. And she's not giving you, there's no context there. So there's no possible way that you can know what those mean. So you'd stop her, be like, hold on, Chelsea. And you pick one of the words, right? You pick one of the words where you can maybe form context of what the other words mean. And you can try to have a conversation, right? So you'd be like, so what is it? I'm pretty familiar with the rest of the words, but what does explanatorious mean? And then she'd hit you with I'm sorry, I was expecting you to know that. And she's like, explanatorious. And then she'd read you she'd have it verbatim out of Webster's, like she's a goddamn Pokedex. Explanatorious, the adjective word. You know what I mean? I don't know, but I think you understand what I'm saying. But like I said, I'm a caveman, so we're 75% caveman. So you guys may not even understand that whole loop I was doing before. But yeah, I mean, and you run into like all different kinds of people, and like, I mean, you'll probably meet more cavemen than the Chelseas of the world who will try to flex on you with vocab, which is a crazy flex. But I think there's people who flex on you for anything that they spend their time on, And these are just some things that I think about. But yeah, I mean, you'll meet the caveman, you'll meet the Chelsea. Now, I think true cavemen are very rare. I've met maybe one true caveman in my life, and I've only really met one Chelsea in my life. And maybe because it was in the Chelsea part was in the formative years, but now I know this caveman. I see him a couple times a week, and he's it's astounding. But yeah, you meet all different types of people throughout your life, and it's just like, think about. I want you to think about next time you're talking to somebody and see where they would land on that spectrum. See if they're if they're using vocab to flex on you. See if you could barely understand what they're saying because they're a caveman. They skip words and stuff. But I like meeting rare people. The caveman is rare. The Chelsea is rare, and there's these things that are super rare. There's these people that are super rare, and I like to call them unicorn people. People that you don't see every day. Let me tell you a story. So there's this one time I was when I was in the military. I was coming home. and I was going back to the East Coast, and so from West Coast to East Coast on a flight, and I had a connection in Chicago O'Hare, and I'll never forget this day. I had it was an odd day, let me tell you. But I get to Chicago O'Hare, and I got about an hour or two to kill before I have to get onto the last leg of my flight. And I was like, you know what, I'm pretty hungry. Let me go grab something from one of these stores here. But I didn't want to eat any like fast food or anything like that. So it was like I didn't want to stop at Bojangles or anything. So I hopped into one of the like the little quick mart shopping things. I think they're like a news corner or something. Well, I don't know what they're called, but one of those places where they had like refrigerators filled with like pre-cooked meals and stuff. And then I ended up getting never had it before, and I've never had it again. But I got vegan drunken noodles. It was my first time having drunken noodles, so I had no idea what it was, and I really put it all on the line there for the vegan part of it because I'm not a vegan guy, you know. I don't think you. I mean, you could definitely be a pretty hefty guy and be vegan because if you're just pounding potatoes and different types of sweets that don't have eggs in them and stuff. I don't know if eggs are vegan or not. I think some people say they are, but yeah, I mean, you can definitely get pretty hefty eating just nothing but carbs. Really, I mean, that would probably be what the majority of your the sources are. I mean, besides like vegetables, I mean, it's like pretty much all carbs and a little bit of protein if you eat like I guess nuts and stuff like that. But yeah, so I go and I grab this vegan drunken noodles. Never had, like I said, never had drunken noodles before. I was like, you know, I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna have Thai food at Chicago O'Hare Airport. And let me tell you, I bought this food. I went and I sat down and ate it cold. There was no way to warm it up, so I just ate it cold. Cold, vegan, drunken noodles. And I've had drunken noodles countless times since that point. And let me tell you, top three drunken noodles I ever had. And I know airport pre-cooked vegan drunken noodles. You're not expecting it, but you know. Sometimes, and that's like those are like the delights in life. But I feel like I'm getting away from it. So anyway, I finished these drunken noodles, right, and I throw out the container and I go to walk to my gate, and I'm walking to my gate, and I see a large crowd of people wearing unusual clothing, right? So I'm like, what's going on down there? I'm like looking down. It's maybe like a couple gates away in my terminal, and they're walking opposite direction. And I'm like, what is happening? I see like a large crowd of people. They're all wearing the same stuff. They're all in like a certain dress code or whatever. So I'm looking at them. They're getting closer. They're getting closer. And I see it's a group of Amish people. And at this point in my life, you know, you see Amish people every now and then. And on the scale of unicorn people, Amish people are, I would say, probably like D tier. Like if you're going to use that tiering system, going from like F to S. And I would say Amish people are probably about D tier, especially if you don't see them often, unless you live in like a highly like populated Amish area. You don't really see them often. So I would rank them up like a conservative D tier. But now, when you see Amish people in an airport, they're automatically B tier, and I'm going to explain why, right? Because what are they doing? Why are they there? Why are the Amish people in the airport? I thought you guys couldn't use power. Now, if I'm wrong, let me know, but I'm almost 100% positive airplanes use electricity in some facet. You know, I'm pretty sure that airplanes have a considerable amount of electricity running through them. So now I don't know the rules of the Amish, but I would assume that they can't use something that uses electricity, but I could be wrong. But that automatically makes this group of Amish people, in my opinion, B tier because they're an unusual group in a place where it would be extremely unusual to see them. So that could be anywhere like B or A tier. You know, I'm gonna go conservative and say B. Now I'm looking at this group and there's about 20 of them. About 20, a mixed group of Amishes. I don't know the plural for Amish, but maybe it's just Amish. I saw about 20 Amish people, and I was like, wow, was not expecting to see a group of Amish people in Chicago O'Hare today. That's pretty cool. And then I'm getting closer, and I start to see I'm like there's a little one there. You know, there's like a kid or something. And boy oh boy was I wrong. It was not a kid. It was a female Amish LP. Now, if you're unfamiliar with an LP is, it's a little person. I think that's the politically correct way to say it now. Or if you don't know what that is, it's a midget, right? And that's S tier. I think that's as S tier as you can get. I don't think you can get higher on a scale of rare person or unicorn person than an Amish midget in an airport. I think location matters when you're ranking these too, because the location makes it. I mean, I think Amish midget is already S tier, but you throw them in an airport, and that just solidifies S tier. There is no, that's me being conservative. That's not, that's not A on a bad day. That's as S tier as it gets, I think. So yeah, and I'm just like thinking, I'm just like, what a hard existence to have. I mean, you're already born with like challenges of like you're born with an ailment, and I'm talking about being Amish. Like, I'm not talking about being a little person. Like, they have tools and stuff now today that they can live a relatively normal life. But just, do you have the same access to the same tools? Because you can't use electricity, you can't use power, you can't use all the things all the tools that have been created and engineered to help you make your life easier. So now, like you think about like that show that used to be on TV called Little People Big World, right? And like, I remember vaguely that there was like a clip of how they drive, and they have like pedal extenders so that that way they can reach, like, obviously, like the brake and the gas. And I'm just like, well, she doesn't drive a car. Do they have extenders for horseback, or is it just a smaller saddle? And like, if she was wearing like spurs or something on the horseback, is she just spurring spine? Because I think you're supposed to spur like near the like side belly on the horse, but she's just spurring spine, like, because she can't get down that far. She's hitting right in the ribs, just absolute. And like, what if that horse takes off? Now if you ever, let me know if you about your S tier unicorn people. But if you see an Amish midget in Chicago O'Hare Airport on horseback, I think you got me beat. But if you see an Amish midget on horseback, snap a photo and send it to me. But I think that's the only way that you're gonna be able to beat me, with my unicorn person. And to this day, like I said, I've been around 29 years. I've never seen anything more rare than that. And if you have something rare, I really want to know. If you think you have something that's equivalent and or rarer or close to an Amish midget in Chicago Airport, or Amish little person in Chicago Airport, you need to let me know. It's not, you don't have a choice in the matter. I think this is something that you definitely need to let me know, because I'm curious, and it's unfair for you to withhold that information from me. Yeah, and I mean, and like all these, like all the Amish, they're usually in like the Pennsylvania, Ohio area, I think. And I don't think if they're in Michigan or what, but I mean, usually stay out of like metro areas. They're not really near cities too much, unless they're like doing business or whatever. But speaking of like of Michigan, I don't know if you guys have seen, right? But I was watching this. I was just scrolling through my Instagram, and I saw a clip of some guy talking about Detroit, and he's saying, "Oh yeah, Detroit's back on the up." I think it was a Dr. Mike Israetel, which, if you don't know, he's kind of like a fitness influencer now, but he's like an actual doctor. He does really good content, and he has like I think he's funny. But he's talking about how because he lives in Detroit, and he's talking about the real estate in Detroit. And he's saying that in the like metro area of Detroit, it's starting to come back. It's starting to look nice and all that kind of stuff. But on the outskirts, it's like it's still a shanty town. And it got me thinking. I was like, how much is, if Detroit's on the up, like, maybe I could throw some money in some Detroit real estate and figure out, just like hold on to it for the long run and see what happens. And so I look up some Detroit real estate, and boy, oh boy, you can buy not a city block, but a residential block, which is probably maybe like five houses on one side of the street, we'll call it. You could buy five houses or five plots of land on one side of the street in Detroit for under $10,000. How bad does it have to get before land with houses on it is cheaper than land with nothing on it? You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. So like, and I'm a digger. I like to dig. I like to be like, I start doing mental math. I'm like, wait, hold on. So okay, so if you could buy five houses in Detroit for under 10 grand, you might even buy them for under 5 grand. If the same guy owns all of them, you're just like, hey man, like, I'm gonna buy all these five, and let him take them off your hands. Like, Like, can you cut me a deal? You know, and you should be like, yeah, I'll do it for four, and you could buy 5 houses for $4,000, and you'd probably get around like an acre or two, and that's outrageous. But so it got me thinking. I'm like, huh. I'm like, could normal people just take over Detroit? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, okay, so if Detroit's coming back, and say in 20 to 30 years, I'm assuming the rest of it'll trickle out, you know, it'll trickle out into like the suburbs, and people start building nice houses. And I'm pretty sure there's some areas that are like, there's mansions, you know what I mean? But if you're buying plots of land for 1,000 a pop with houses on it, obviously these houses have lead paint and black mold, and they need to be knocked down. And it's going to cost you more to knock those houses down than it is to buy the plot of land. But once you have the rights to the land, that's all that really matters, you know? But I looked it up, and you can buy 51% of the parcels or plots of land in Detroit proper, not proper, I don't know, I don't even know what that means. In the city of Detroit, in the surrounding areas, but I think it's like, you're actually in the city of Detroit, but it's just like the outskirts. You can buy 51% of the plots of land, and it would only cost you $256 million. Now, I know you're like, where am I going to get $256 million from? That's not the point, right? But I'm pretty sure you could find 10 houses in New Jersey that equal $256 million. You know what I mean? You could definitely find 10 houses in California that equal $256 million. And so if you think about it, you could buy more than half of Detroit for, like, Elon Musk can do that tonight. He could just buy half of Detroit. Just buy it. And I'm pretty sure that the parcels are for sale. You know, and I'm sure he can get a deal so where it would be less than $256 million. And you could just run Detroit. Detroit's yours now. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, right? Where if you own more than 50% of a city, it's just you could do whatever you want. It's like you can run around in a Batman suit, and you could just run the streets of Detroit because it's yours. And you get arrested, like, I own 51% of the city. I can do whatever I want. That's how it works. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But what do I know? I'm just a guy who's talking on a podcast to absolutely nobody. I do want to try something different, though, to kind of end this. And this may be awful, but I do want to try something. Let me see if I can share my screen. We're going to let them screen record. Oh, later. I should be in the settings. All right, cool. We're going to allow, and we're going to pop open this window here. Wow, that's really tiny. Hold on. All right, well, this has been a little bit of a fail here, since I should have tried to figure this out beforehand. Didn't. I'm gonna just go here. I'm gonna do that instead. Like, out of that. All right, so I'm not sure if you guys can see that or not, but it's a wheel. All right, so I got a wheel. Basically, the premise of this wheel is I made it with Claude, and it's called the No One's Watching wheel. Basically, what you do is you spin it. It's gonna give you a random topic, and a way to talk about the topic, right? So I did a little preparatory spin, and it says, talk about a strategy to win a fight against a goose, but you're a guy who just chugged 6 energy drinks. Now, I'm not going to do that one because I think that would be really hard. And I don't know what it's like I mean, I wish I actually didn't know what it was like to drink 6 energy drinks in one day, but I have. Let's see what I get here and see if I'm going to cut this out or not. All right, spin. Okay, the spin I got was a slogan you'd put on your Colts t-shirts, but a surfer dude is in the voice of a surfer dude who's totally chill. All right, so I'm gonna give this my best shot. I don't know if this is gonna be any good. Right, man. So, like, I have this Colt, right, and dude, we shred gnar, you know. Like, we try to find like the 10-foot waves or higher, and we go down. I don't know why I'm doing like a Delco accent. Hold on. All right, let me try something else. Strategies when a fight versus a goose is okay, no, not the goose. I don't want to stay away from the goose. I don't like that voice. I was looking for more like more interesting voices than what they're giving me. The most chaotic thing you can do as president for a day, as a Russian spy who's blowing his cover. Now this is interesting. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Here goes nothing, right? So you're asking me what I would do if I were the president for a day? You know, I never I never thought about this, but if I were president for a day, I think that I think that I would change a lot, you know. There's a lot of stuff wrong with this country that I want to change, you know, make it like more back home. I mean, you know, because I'm from Baltimore, you know. I want to make it. I know Baltimore is in this country, but you know, I want to make the country more like my city, you know. And I think Baltimore is a great city, and I'd like to make so things that I would do, you know. I think we change. First, I think we change Gulf of America to something like the the United States Harbor, or the harbor of because you know Baltimore has harbor. I think the national bird would be the raven. You know, I think we do that for in 24 hours. But, you know, 24 hours is a long time. It takes a couple of of hours to be able to change make those changes. So I mean, I have a lot to do for that day. I'd probably change the Mount Rushmore. I put my face on the Mount Rushmore. I probably like to obviously take a ride on Air Force One. I think that would be a very cool thing to do. Air Force One would be fantastic. You know, how many people from Russia do you think? I mean, how many people from Baltimore would you think would be on the Air Force One? I don't think many people from Baltimore would be on Air Force One. I think the country we changed we have two national birds. We have the raven, and we have the oriole for the sports team in the in Baltimore. You know, there's many things that I do. You know, obviously, I think we pull out of the Ukraine war. You know, we pull out of Ukraine war. You know, you just let the Russia have it. You know, I have no ties with Russia, but you know, I think that is okay. You know, you let them have the Ukraine. This is their land. You know. Yeah, but I'm just from Baltimore. I don't know what I'm talking about. But you know, I think that would be step one. Probably maybe step five. You know, I'm from Baltimore. Who really cares about the Ukraine or Russia? But I think I think we need to change the diets back to in schools to be more American. You know, honey buns and in the ice cream only. You only have ice cream and honey bun in school. You know, they make the kids happy. But I'm from Baltimore, so who knows? That's how it was in Baltimore. You know, you eat the ice cream and you eat the honey bun, and you happy boy, you happy child. So I think that is the way you should do it. But yeah, I just want the country to be more like Baltimore, you know, and I think that is the way to be able to do. And but if I were president, if I were president, what would I do for the day? You know, it is a chaotic day as president. Let's see. So we we name the Gulf of America to Gulf of Russia. I mean the harbor of America, and then we change the national bird to you know Oriole and Raven, because that is the sports teams in Baltimore, and we add my face to Mount Rushmore. Yeah, I like that one. That one's very good. And oh, don't forget, we pull out of the Ukraine war because you know it's Mother Russia's land anyway. But who knows? I'm from Baltimore, mother Baltimore. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and I think we end this day. We've done a lot in the day already, so I think the main thing that we do at the end of the day is we maybe we just give all of our nuclear codes to Russia. Why not? Who needs the bombs? Not. I think from Baltimore. I don't like. I obviously I'm from Baltimore, but you don't want. We shouldn't even we shouldn't even have nuclear codes. You know what I'm saying? Like we should just give them all to Russia. Be better safekeeping. They have more land. They can keep them in Ukraine on the newly acquired land or the land that they already had. In that way, when I'm in Baltimore, I feel much safer, knowing that the codes are in good hands back home in Russia. I mean, in the Russian hands, but when I go back to my my duplex in Russia, I feel like I'd be much more happier knowing that the nuclear code's in safe hands instead of this guy Mr. Donald, And at the end of my day, I do the world a favor, and I give the codes back to Russia. Yes, I give the codes to Russia, and I stay in Baltimore forever because that's where I'm from. Did you know that I'm from Baltimore? All right, I think I'm going to stop there. I don't know where else to go with that. But that was the most chaotic thing you would do as president for a day, but you're a Russian spy who's blowing their cover. If you are watching this, you shouldn't be. If you watched the last one, you shouldn't have. And if you're a Russian spy who lives in Baltimore, don't give the nuclear codes to Russia if you become president for a day. Okay, bye.